I've spent a lot of time alone in the woods, enough to know when a forest feels off. Trees have a language, creaks, groans, muffled wind. And if you've hiked long enough, you can tell when something in the silence doesn't belong to that language. This happened last fall, somewhere deep in the mountains between West Virginia and Virginia. I'm not going to give exact coordinates, because after what happened, I don't think anyone should go looking for that place. I was on day 2 of a solo hike, following a barely used trail that wound up the slope like a scar. It wasn't an official trail. It was one of those paths carved by deer and forgotten by people. I took it because I wanted quiet. I wanted a place where even cell signals refused to come. I found that, and something else found me. Around noon, with sunlight spilling through the trees in pale streams, I heard something metallic. A faint tink, 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 like metal tapping wood. It echoed unnaturally far. I thought maybe some old hunter had set up camp nearby, maybe banging a tool against a tree. But the sound didn't move, didn't get closer, didn't fade. Just tapped. I tried ignoring it and kept climbing. The narrow path wound through a steep incline with loose dirt, roots, and a thick tunnel of branches overhead. It felt like walking into a throat. Dark, narrowing, swallowing light. That's when I saw the first set of tracks. They were boot prints, but the stride was huge. Like whoever walked through was either freakishly tall or running. The weird part was the angle. The tracks weren't going up or down the trail. They were cutting across it, straight toward a dense patch of woods so thick that even sunlight couldn't slip through. No hiker would go that way. No normal person could squeeze through that wall of trees. Still, I crouched and studied the prints. The dirt around them was disturbed. Heavy, deep, like the person putting weight on it was carrying something heavy. That's when the metallic tapping stopped. The forest fell into a silence so complete it made my ears ring. And then I heard the whistle. A long, low, breathy whistle, like someone exhaling between their teeth. It came from the same direction the tracks disappeared into. Slow, deliberate, almost testing the air. I froze. The whistle repeated, closer this time. I didn't wait to see who or what was making it. I threw my pack over my shoulder and kept hiking, forcing myself not to run. Every instinct screamed at me to sprint, but a part of me knew running would draw attention, and it did anyway. 10 minutes later, branches snapped somewhere behind me. Not twigs, branches, the kind only something big would break through. I pushed forward, lungs burning, eyes scanning the path for anywhere to hide. Up ahead, I saw a ridge with a fallen tree. I jumped behind its thick trunk and crouched low, trying to control my breathing. The woods went still again, and then footsteps, heavy, slow, crunching leaves with long pauses in between, like the thing walking was listening after each step. A shadow appeared through the brush tall. Too tall. I couldn't see much detail, only that it moved with an unnatural stiffness, like a person wearing skin that didn't quite fit. It stopped exactly where my footprints ended, and it sniffed. Loud, harsh inhalations, like a dog scenting prey. I covered my mouth with both hands. I could hear it, breathing, shifting weight, exhaling a faint whistle between breaths. Then I saw it bend down. A long arm reached toward the ground, fingers grazing the dirt where my footprints were. The arm was human mostly, but unnaturally long, the elbow bending at an angle that made my stomach drop. The hand twitched as if the fingers didn't quite know how to work. It lifted its head then, and I realized it was looking straight at the tree I hid behind. I didn't think. I ran. I shot uphill, dirt sliding beneath my boots, branches clawing at my face. Behind me, the thing let out a sharp inhale, almost a gasp, like it was excited. Then came the sound. The metallic tink, 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 except now I knew it wasn't metal. It was the sound of something tapping its teeth together. I don't remember most of that climb. Panic erased chunks of it from my memory. I only remember the sound chasing me. Its steps slamming the ground, its breath raspy and too fast, its tapping echoing off the trees like a warning. At the top of the ridge, I spotted movement, 3 figures coming up the trail from the opposite side. For a moment I thought I was saved. Hunters, 3 hunters in blaze orange jackets, rifles slung over their shoulders. They froze when they saw me burst out of the woods, bloody from branches, panting, eyes wide. One of them raised his hand, signaling me to stop. "Where is it?" he said. "Not what. Where?" Before I could speak, the tapping echoed behind me. All 3 hunters raised their rifles. "Get behind us," one demanded. "Don't look back." I didn't argue. I moved behind them, still shaking, still hearing the creature's distorted breathing pushing through the trees. Branches parted. It stepped out. Even now, I can't fully describe it. It was tall, over 7 feet, maybe 8. Its limbs were elongated, joints wrong, its head tilted like it was studying angles of our faces. Its eyes were too dark, its mouth slightly open, showing teeth that were too long and clicking together in rapid ticks. One hunter whispered, "It's bolder this year." Then the creature's mouth stretched into something that wasn't a smile, but looked like it wanted to be. They fired. The gunshots shattered the stillness. Birds exploded from the canopy. Smoke filled the air. The creature didn't scream. It hissed, jerked backward, and vanished into the brush with unnatural speed, bones cracking as it moved sideways through trees no human could pass through. The hunters grabbed me and practically dragged me down the opposite trail, refusing to slow down. When we reached their truck, one of them finally spoke. "You're lucky. Few people ever get away once it starts tracking them." I asked what it was. They didn't answer clearly. They only said, "It watches the trails, learns the patterns, picks the lone ones." They drove me all the way down the mountain and told me never to hike alone in that region again. I haven't. And I don't think I ever will. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't human. It didn't move like a human. It didn't think like a human. And the worst part, as the truck drove away, I looked back up the mountain. On the ridge, between the trees, I saw a tall, crooked silhouette standing completely still, and its teeth were tapping. I grew up around wildlife. My dad was a hunter, my uncle a guide, and I spent more nights in the woods than in my own bed. I know what normal wilderness sounds like. I know what moves in the trees, what howls in the distance, what stalks, what flees. That's why the thing I saw in northern Minnesota haunts me to this day, because it moved like something that knew how to pretend to be an animal, but wasn't one. The boundary waters have a strange beauty. Miles of untouched forest, lakes so clear you can see the rocks at the bottom, and silence so deep it feels like the whole world is holding its breath. I'd hiked there before, but this trip was different. I wanted isolation. No noise, no people, no trail markers, just compass, map, and instinct. The first 2 days were calm. Cold mornings, quiet afternoons, nights filled with distant howls and rustling underbrush. Normal stuff. Until the 3rd night, I set up camp near a lake. Just a hammock and tarp between the trees, fire crackling low. I was eating dried sausage when I heard it. Not a howl, Not a growl, a whistle, long, flat, perfectly steady, like someone slowly letting air out of their lungs. I froze. Wolves don't whistle. Deer don't whistle. Nothing I've ever tracked whistles like a human hiding in the dark. I turned off my headlamp and listened. The whistle repeated, but this time it echoed, like it came from two different spots at once, across the lake and deep in the woods behind me. I convinced myself it was wind. It wasn't. That night, I woke up to crunching, something moving around my camp. Heavy steps, slow, deliberate. I stayed perfectly still in my hammock, barely breathing. Then I heard a soft, low, sniffing right under me. Something was smelling the hammock fabric. Smelling me, I kept my eyes shut. Whatever it was, circled the hammock twice, then walked away. At sunrise, I checked the ground. Tracks, huge tracks. At first glance, they looked like wolf prints, but wolves don't step that strangely. The toes were too long, the claws dug too deep, and the spacing between prints was wrong, too far apart. Something walking upright had made them. That was the moment I decided to leave. I packed fast and moved north, heading toward the nearest ranger station, or trying to. For the next 4 hours I felt watched. Not paranoid in the woods watched, but targeted. Every time I stopped, the forest fell silent. Every time I walked, I heard movement parallel to me. Something stepping when I stepped, stopping when I stopped. A stalker that didn't want to be seen around noon, I reached a stretch of marshland. The trail disappeared, so I skirted the edges. That's when it happened. A splash, loud, heavy, came from the marsh behind me. I spun around expecting a moose. But what I saw instead, at first my brain tried to categorize it as a wolf. Big, grayish, hunched, but the posture was wrong. The front legs were bent backward, hyperextended, like broken limbs forced to walk. And its head flicked from side to side too fast. Like it was tasting the air with rapid little jerks, its eyes locked onto mine. And it stood up. Not fully. Not like a person. But enough to show that its spine could bend in ways no animal's spine should. It rose on twisted limbs, shaky but intentional, head tilted unnaturally, as if it was learning how to stand like me. It let out a breathy whistle. My blood turned to ice. The creature dropped back to all fours and sprinted. Not toward me, but past me, circling wide through the trees. Cutting off my exit, I bolted. Branches whipped against my arms as I tore through underbrush, heart slamming in my chest. Behind me, I heard more movement, plural fast, coordinated. Like 2 or 3 of them weaving through the forest, herding me the way wolves herd deer. The air filled with those whistling breaths. I stumbled onto a rocky ledge and nearly fell. Below was a ravine, steep and deep, with sharp boulders scattered like teeth. No way down safely. One of the creatures stepped out onto the ledge across from me. Full view. It looked like a malformed wolf stretched over a human skeleton, limbs too long. Joints bent wrong. Jaw unhinged slightly, revealing uneven teeth. Fur patchy like it didn't grow naturally. Its head tilted in that same study way, as if mimicking curiosity. It whistled again, and another answered from behind me. Trapped. I reached for the flare in my pack, last resort, and snapped it to life. The sudden blast of red light made both creatures recoil violently, jaws snapping, bodies twisting backward in a jerky, unnatural retreat. That gave me seconds. I waved the flare at them, screaming, forcing them back step by step. The flaring red glow threw wild shadows through the trees, and the creatures twisted away from the brightness like it burned them. When they finally broke and vanished into the brush, I didn't wait. I followed the ridge until I found a slope, shallow enough to descend without dying. I slid half the way down, tore open my palms, bruised my ribs, but I got out of there. I hiked non-stop for nearly 8 hours, flare still clutched in my hand, until I reached a ranger cabin after dark. The ranger didn't ask many questions, but when I mentioned wolves walking strange, his expression changed. He told me hikers report things sometimes, things that watch silently, things that leave prints too deep for wolves, things that whistle back at calls. He said a pack of wolves doesn't stalk a human for miles without attacking. Wolves test a threat, then either strike or leave. They don't play. But whatever stalked you, he said quietly, it wasn't playing. It was practicing. Even now I can still hear the whistle. Sometimes low, sometimes distant, sometimes impossibly close, as if something out there is still learning how to call for me. I've always loved camping and exploring remote areas ever since I got my driver's license at 16. My friends and I, Megan, Colin, and Anne, were senior year thrill seekers, constantly chasing secluded spots for adventure. My dad trusted us enough to lend us his Taurus G2C for protection, something we never thought we'd actually need. It was February when we decided to backpack through the Ozarks in Arkansas. Our plan was simple: hike to some waterfalls, explore, and camp overnight in the woods. The drive was 9 hours from our hometown, so we didn't arrive until around 7 p.m. We set up camp at a small designated site for the night. Megan and I shared one tent, Colin and Anne the other. I kept the gun in my tent, mostly for peace of mind. The first night was uneventful, but the next morning, as we hiked toward the waterfall, Anne claimed she kept seeing someone standing still, just watching us. At first, we dismissed it as paranoia, but then we saw a man dash between the trees. Colin shouted at him to leave, more to impress Anne than anything else. The waterfall was breathtaking, a hidden gem in the middle of untouched forest. We spent a couple of hours taking pictures, soaking in the water, and enjoying lunch. Then we decided to find a place to camp for the night. That's when the unease returned. As we searched, I noticed a woman, impossibly tall, at least 6 feet 5 inches, watching us silently. Her long, lanky frame and black hair, hanging in tangles, made her feel almost unreal. We warned her, even mentioned the gun. She simply turned and walked away, but the forest felt smaller afterward, as if it had closed in. We pressed on and eventually found a secluded creek with a deep pool. It seemed perfect. We stripped down to our swimsuits and relaxed, splashing around. The earlier sightings felt like bad jokes, and we laughed about it, blaming hillbillies on drugs. As the sun set, we prepared dinner: grilled chicken, rice, vegetables, potatoes. We smoked and drank a little, sharing stories by the fire. It was late when we finally went to our tents. Megan and I were messing around when a sound froze my blood, someone laughing outside. At first I thought it was Colin, but he denied it. My heart sank. I grabbed the gun and ran out of the tent, firing a few warning shots into the dark. The laughter stopped, and we huddled together, moving our tents closer and deciding one person would stay awake as a lookout at all times. The next morning, we debated leaving, but curiosity and a stubborn sense of pride kept us going. We hiked closer to the exit for one last night of camping, hoping the night's intruder had gone. That night I woke needing to pee and stepped outside with the gun. Leaves crunched under a weight that didn't belong. My headlamp revealed him. Tall, lanky, with long black hair and a machete in hand. The night air felt heavier, and every instinct screamed danger. I screamed and fired. He fell, screaming himself, though I couldn't tell if he was hit or just stumbled. By now, Megan, Colin, and Anne were awake. We didn't waste time packing. We grabbed our bags and ran. 3 miles back to the car in under an hour. We climbed in, locked the doors, and slept in the car, shaken and frozen. Even days later, I can't shake the memory. The unnatural height, the way he moved, how calm he was despite a gun being pointed at him. We never reported the incident. We didn't know what to say, and honestly, the memory made us doubt ourselves. It's been years now, but I still think about the Ozarks Night Stalker. I can't explain why he targeted us, or if he had done it before. All I know is that camping hasn't felt the same since. The woods used to feel like freedom. Now they feel like eyes watching from the shadows,